Hello, today is the second day of September 2019. It's that of Labor Day, whoever it is that you spell or pronounce it. And not every part of the world, I think, has it. I know it's definitely in Canada and the US. Not too sure about other parts. But anyway, welcome to the video. All bets, trades of the like within each his own risk and their own reward. Going to go through Bitcoin and dominance over the charts. Not else much going on within cryptos, and Bitcoin and dominance doing what I thought it'd be doing on a very slow and sure method. Not calculated. At least I'm not calculating it. And then we're going to move into some interesting things, sports mainly, but we're going to look at it first through baseball. Justin Verlander and calculating odds. He had a fantastic game yesterday. And I want to talk about, the odds, something I think about all the time, and was trying to figure out what the odds he was actually going to pitch a no hitter just a little bit before he actually did. And also not written on here regarding baseball, and it's about sports betting in this, and that's a prop bets. And there's two that I'm really interested in. You probably won't have time for any of them. It's 12:51 p.m. as I'm doing it. The first one cuts off at 1:40 p.m. Then another one a little after that, and I'm going to go through that as well. And then NLC2, which happens to be fantasy sports, also it's a cryptocurrency. I last talked about in April. I want to talk about that as well. Bring up that chart. Bring up the situations for it. It doesn't look too good, unfortunately. And NFL fantasy for deep leagues, keepers, even those trying to get the big sleepers in daily fantasy. I got a couple wide receivers that I like. I drafted both of them in my keeper league yesterday. So I'm going to talk about that at the end of this video. All right, then, without further ado, let's move on to the Bitcoin chart. And how do you do? It's 99.55 almost, just a little under $50 away from the $10,000 number. Obviously, still within the range, starting to leave the lower end, but really low in the range, especially in the relative area of about 92 low change up to 13 low change. Still, I mean 99, just on the lower end, but it's getting up to the 18 average, getting into the band, pretty much around the 18 average of closes at this point. Not too far from the highs. Those numbers right now, if you're curious, are on the left-hand side. 10,163 for the highs and 9,737 on the 18 average of lows. When we look at this on the shorter term, we can see that this thing is working out pretty good because, and this here reminds me very interestingly of the daily chart from earlier this year, which we'll look again when we in a little bit, and it's a little bit now because that little bit would have been this little move in here. Let me just see if we can go back in here. Yeah, it reminds me a lot of, I guess, this little bit in here. And of course, after that was the spectacular move that it's been encountering. But it gets above this level of resistance at 96 high change. It did so. This is September 1700 hours yesterday. So yesterday after dinner, it had the move. It consolidated for 3 periods. Just and look at the low volatility, especially the final one. The low was 97.53. The high was 97.83. That's a differential of about 30 basis points. That's almost 1/3%, and that is within 180 minutes. Well, people were sleeping. I was sleeping at that time, but people must have been sleeping, I would suppose. But anyway, nice green candle up, nice green candle up, and even nice green candle up because what we can see within the last 2 periods alone, and where did we come from in here, which of course was this nice up move sideways and start of a breakout rally. But what we see within this is the fact that previous period it came back down to this area. This period it came back down at least to here, and it's starting to rally back higher. So short term, I'm going to be giving myself the belief that looking, and I haven't seen it, but looking at the 15-minute and 4-minute term time frame, that this is going to be a very nice looking chart. I already knew what the 1 hour looked like because I was quick. I looked at that just like a minute before I started this video. But yes, we have this resistance break in here of, oh my goodness, everyone's sleeping. This is that microscopic volatility as it was just hanging in there within the 18 highs. A pure time correction in here. Because almost every single time correction pretty much has a noticeable price correction. And this one doesn't have much of that. But in most price corrections of time, or most corrections through time, you have an up move, and it's like something like this. Okay. Well, there was this price correction here, then this sideways correction. That's a more normal one within it. But it didn't have anything like that. It resisted pretty much at the highs, and it supported well above where they came from at this low here on this 14 stamp here, or yesterday afternoon at 2 p.m. But again, it got going at about 1700 hours, 5 p.m. Eastern time yesterday. And on the 15, we can see just how beautiful this looks. We have this level of resistance in which that it established earlier in this area here. I can put both. I mean, really, the resistance range from 98 low it changed to 98 and a third, and then it consolidated within that point 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning. A nice breakout, and since the breakout, did price action come back to where we came from? No. It could have. It usually does, but and it didn't go to the 18 average of lows. I don't know if that means anything to the sense that it usually has a bit deeper. It's another way where buyers came in a little bit earlier than normal and sellers weren't quite as aggressive on the last stage lower. But what we're seeing here short term is how from this low it gets up to the 18 average of highs about 4 periods ago, consolidates in here and here like it is just a magnificent run as far as I can see in here. And I think from this point on, and I'm surprised I even went this far into the video, I should put a different exchange if I want to look at like the 5 minute or 4 minute time frame and stuff like that. So let's go ahead and do it because that looks a bit nicer. I had a line here at 98, 90. Don't know why I did, but with that being said, 4 minute term, I was mentioning it probably would look pretty good. And after the best sell off that it's had in here, we can see at 11 o'clock, the best really since this period in here from 1 o'clock to 256, when you have a decent amount of time below the 18 lows or a decent price below, which was the case here as it had a good leg lower and spent a lot of time showing weakness amongst the 18 average of lows. So you can look at situations, okay, more times than not, this is going to be a negative situation. Well, not this time. And what happens in here, it gets up to the 18 average of highs, doesn't resist it, establishes a couple layers of resistance, finds the lows, nice support there, matching this level in here, and now back to where it came from in this. And well, if it's going to go deeper, I'm looking for this to. It's an interesting meat battle. They're two coming together because this is working its way down, and the 18 average of lows is working its way up. But they've been away from each other for quite some time since, of course, it broke out in here. Overall, of course, the setup is looking really good for the Bitcoin chart. And we scroll to the BTC dominance, 4 minutes. Well, it's just it's like whatever as far as how the candles look. But single hour term time frame, just seeing a lot of the strength amongst the highs. I've been mentioning for a few days now how it looks like there's something up with this, how it's going to have another leg higher, and it's pretty much doing that. As it managed to get out above this 18 average of the band at the 1700 hour. We can see now that we had a high occur at 4 in the morning. This came down to the 18 average of lows for, well, it started its correction here at the 5, and then it hit the lows here at 9 in the morning, came up to the highs, back down to the lows just in the last hour, and now it's attempting to get above it and getting above the situation of how this price action has went in the direction as it has, uptrend like this, and then the sideways consolidation support to do all of this. That after all of that, if it's able to break this key level, and that's what it's attempting to do now as I'm looking at it, usually you get a decent sized gain. I know this isn't something you trade and all that type of stuff, but it does seem a lot of times these setups work exactly the same way within it. When we take a look at other term time frames, this is looking to breaking nicely above it on the 3 hour term time frame, how the last really since its ultimate low volatile pause period. 4 periods of going sideways like this, pretty much near the 18 lows, but not quite. But after this little sideways move, you break it above this. Okay, it looks like it could probably go. 8 hour time frame is really showing a lot of the same thing. Hasn't came up to this previous level of resistance from the early August highs from almost a month ago. And when we look at this on the daily chart, when you have a situation like this, and as I mentioned earlier about how oftentimes a lot of time corrections will have a price move early. Well, this is exactly that. Because we have this high, then decent red down, 2 pauses, another red down, and then with the next day it went a little bit lower within the move. So this red down followed up really to this low in here. that was it for the price correction, really, because then you have resistance, support, resistance, support. But since it's managed to get above this major short-term level of resistance in here, which is, and really have to put it right there, over the little bit here, consolidating within it after having complete resistance there. That was congesting there, and now it's leaving the congestion over yesterday's and today's session. So getting above this level of previous resistance, approaching this previous high, which getting above that probably could easily take this. Well, what's the high number on here? We got 72.54, probably a decent number in the 73 to 74 area is where I think this would go. And where we go from there, well, it's due to top at any time long term. But just because it's due to, oh, well, this is for like almost anything. If anything is really due to do something, especially because it's been so much or so long, then yeah, of course, okay, if you're right about it, yeah, it's due and it will. But when? I could say it's due for this to stop going higher and have a move lower, but it might go all the way up to 84 or 85 and then have a move lower to 76. Heck, it could have a move up to 91 and have a move lower to 77 or something. So yeah, it could be up. It is up too much, or it is overextended. I can't say it's up too much because obviously nothing's really ever up too much or down too much in a legit trading market environment, which I gotta think this is. But yeah, at some point it's going to go down, but right now, for the short term, of course, it doesn't look like it's happening now. It looks like we're going to have another leg higher. We've already gotten past this. You can see exitation in here, make a new high. Got past this level of resistance, nice new high. Once it got past this level of resistance, of course, from this one, it's already had at least a key one to here, so nice big move from that point. And looking back again at this, and I didn't think I was going to spend so much time at it. We can see that the move August the 28th through well the last 3 days of August really shown how well it just supported and stayed within it. Now it's leaving that session. Okay, that's it for that video. Let's now move on to the uh, baseball talk. And what happened? I wasn't sure what to do. I had to do some things in town, so I actually missed the end of the game, but I did watch it after when I came back. As 8 innings were done, the Houston Astros had 0 runs on 3 hits, and there wasn't an error in the game. And the Toronto Blue Jays had no runs on no hits and no errors. I was watching this game and I was getting a lot of memories back from the very early 1990s when the Toronto Blue Jays were in Arlington, Texas to take on the Texas Rangers. And I watched the great, on TV, I watched the great Nolan Ryan pitch his sixth career no-hitter against the Blue Jays. That was just an amazing memory of some games from back in the day. And Justin Verlander I don't think he's no Nolan Ryan, but he's had a very spectacular career. He got, I think it was his third no hitter and the second against the Toronto Blue Jays on this night. Now I was trying to think, what's the odds he actually officially gets a no hitter? I was kind of hoping that the Astros were going to get a 14-15 inning win with no hits allowed. That's what I was kind of hoping for. A 1-0 Houston win in 15 innings, and the bullpen collectively got a no hit. That's what I was cheering for. Didn't happen. But what I was thinking, well, for him to get a no hitter, it's a whole bunch of parlay of things. First off, Houston has to score at least 1 run here in the ninth. Alex Bregman, as far as I know, he's the first ever current ever live sport athlete to vlog his a channel on YouTube. I haven't watched his channel since just the start of spring training, but I watched a lot of it in the off season. Alex Bregman has a YouTube channel, and he was the second hitter, I think, in the lineup in the the ninth inning. Something like, what's the chances they get at least 1 run? They're facing Ken Giles, who is who's a spectacular pitcher. So it's going to be very difficult for them to, at least even with the heart of their order, to manufacture at least 1 run. So I figured it was probably 30% tops, 28 to 30%. So I was thinking, okay, maybe 4, 5, and 1 even. And then what's the chances that Verlander gets his no hitter, which I figured would have been better than 50-50. So I figured, okay, 7, 8 to 1 odds is the chances. But when something's meant to happen, it just seems that it's meant to happen. Because first off, you had a double by Bregman. with one out. He then was able to move to third on a sacrifice fly and then a home run as a third baseman. I can't remember his name, Baez maybe, but he had a home run to make it 2-0. And then Justin Verlander was able to get all three outs. But once that was happening, you're like, okay, is Justin Verlander ever going to mess it up? But it got pretty cool because Bo Bichette was the final hitter for the Toronto Blue Jays, and he's a magnificent player. He made contact, he grounded out to third, and Justin Verlander got his no hitter. Speaking about Bo Bichette, he is one of two guys that that I think is an interesting bet to go get at least two bases. First off, we got Nick Senzel. He's a player for the Cincinnati Reds. Excuse me, the Philadelphia Phillies. Excuse me, or no, yeah, he's on the Cincinnati Reds. And betting on him to get two hits. I actually took his statistics and I put them into a spreadsheet, which is in here. And what I did to calculate total bases is I took hits plus doubles plus the 2 points for each triple, 3 points for each homer because you already get credited for a hit every time, plus the walk to count how many times he has multiple bases. Then I put a formula in here. If this number is greater than 1.5, or at least 2, give me a 1. If not, give me a 0. So this way, when I got the sum, there was 49 times out of 99 occurrences where this player I just named off managed to get the double hit. So this guy does it half the time. So why would I take a player who's going to do it half the time and take 191 odds? Well, it's a pitcher they're pitching they're going up against. So I'm going to load up the covers.com data, which is the Philadelphia game here. This is the pitcher right here. Drew Smiley. I want to pick on him, if you will. 2-6 with a 6.95 ERA, an 89 and one-third inning. He has opponent batting average of 369. His last start, 5 2/3 innings, allowing 9 hits. Start before that, 3 2/3, allowing 5 hits and 3 walks. Before that, 5 innings, 7 hits, and 2 walks. Before that, 5 2/3 innings, 7 hits, 3 walks. So he just allows a lot of hits and he allows a lot of bases in total. Now it says no markets available on here. Maybe it says in 59 minutes. I don't know if that means anything or not. The next one is the Toronto Blue Jays. This is Cloud. This is the Cloud site, cloudbet.com. And specials. So for this one, Bo Bichette. I mean, the total home runs is just a terrible bet. Just badly juiced. 4.76 odds, which is plus 376. And plus 111, which is like minus 870 or something. Just terrible odds. But here we got like 194, 177, a little bit of vig, but you're getting close to even odds on over 1.5. Now, I like this bet actually. I think he's got about a close to a 60% chance of doing it. And this is Bo Bichette has already played against this player before, or this is the first time I think Bo Bichette is facing off against a pitcher for the second time in his career, and it's a short career. In fact, I'm hoping that if I push Control Z on here a few times over, I should get it back. Because I just pasted this on top of Bo Bichette's stats. No, that takes me to other stuff I was working on. Now this says no markets are available in 7 minutes. But when we take a look at Bo Bichette, I'll bring up his statistics. And I'm going to do this with Baseball Reference. And then bring up his page. And I want to go to his game log. And for the season, he's hitting 328, 8 home runs in his short playing career. But here we have all his games, and here we have his hits, his doubles. So in his first game, he only got 1 base, but he had 2 hits here. This game here, he had a double, so this was a multi-hit game. You can see all the 2s in here. This game here, he got another double. So that was another multi-base game, because if you get a double, you get it right there. Any extra base hit gets you the win right then and there. And well, most of the time, he has over his 31 games. It's somewhere close to 230, well about 20 or so of the games. Now this Atlanta series, in each of the games he got 1 base against Atlanta before, and apparently I think he's facing off against one of the same pitchers that he did within this rotation series as it is. But Bo Bichette is a fantastic, fantastic player. He is pitching against a or playing against a fantastic pitcher, however. If we go back to the matchups again and take a look at this pitcher here, we can see how I mean, this is just a huge favorite for the Atlanta Braves, but this pitcher is just phenomenal. 10-3 record over 147 innings. Opposing batting average of 284 and an earned run average of 244. Not the greatest of opponents' batting average, so that's something I'm like, okay. He's also Canadian too, from Calgary, Alberta. And when we look at this in here, yeah, so in Toronto, August the 27th, he pitched 6 innings, allowed 8 hits and 2 runs. 7 innings, 5 hits, 6 and 2/3, 7. 7 innings, he allowed 3 hits and 1 walk. So it's not the easiest guy to get hits off, but he's also by no means Walker Bueller, and even he's not playing as well lately. But he's not Justin Verlander anyway. And of course, to me, I think it's an interesting bet because with props like that, a lot of times Vegas or the bookmakers don't put as much time, effort, and energy that they should into those. At least that's one of my theories I've had for a while of those interesting kind of prop bets. And I'm not betting them, but I just think that they have got good long-term value. What I did do during Alex Ovechkin's rookie year, which is now a decade and a half or so ago now, was I was just every single game at the end of the season when Ovechkin was playing. I was putting like 100 or $200 on him to will he score a goal? Yes, every single game, and it was like, oh, I win, I win, I lose, I win, I win, I lose, I win. It was just too easy, and I was getting close to even odds, or even sometimes about that every game, as they really didn't calculate how good of a player he really was, even in his rookie year. And moving back to fantasy baseball now, and this is NLC2. Multiply 100 million to put it. It's at 20 Satoshi right now. And this is a 3 hour term, so let's just move this to the daily, and it's been getting its ass kicked. The last that I talked about this was in mid April, roughly around here when it was around 200 Satoshi. So it's down about 10x or 90% since that time. And I got out of it then. And it really wasn't due to chart action, although I was seeing in here that because this rally really, I was thinking that it probably could at least come down to, like, I was even thinking 130 down to this 88. I didn't think it was going to do this though. But what happened was I waited a little while to play the fantasy baseball, give it a few days, and that's what I did. Then I came in one day and said, yeah, I'm going to play. And I started to notice how it was working and was like, okay, they are cutting this thing off on the afternoon games. Like if there's a game at like 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock, they cut it off, and then they include the night games. I'm thinking, well, that's odd. Like because I missed it the day before that I wanted to play. Okay, so it came close to it, and well, let's talk about overlay first of all. An overlay is a situation where let's just assume like, okay, we're gonna have 100 max players for a game, and you have to put up say 1 unit. So if that was the case, I could put a prize pool of 100, but we need to take a bit of rake, so we'll make the prize pool worth like 94. So you have to put 1 unit up to play, and the prize pool is worth 94 as long as we reach our minimum of 25 players. Well, if it was consistently having stuff like that, and you have like 50 players playing, 50, 60 players playing in the NFL and the NBA games. So the overlay for every single game was huge, at least most of the time, more times than not. So it worked out that for every 1 unit I was putting into the fantasy game on the site, it was worth like 1.3, 1.4 units, and thus I was getting consistent overlay, which was fantastic. And in baseball, I entered the game, and I noticed it was very close to the minimum. I thought it didn't make it. Maybe the minimum was like 25, and there was like 22, 23. I put my maximum amount of lineups in that I was allowed to put in, and what happened was I woke up the next morning. I did pretty okay. I actually did really well overall, but I noticed at the cutoff time there was like 24 people or whatever, and during the first hour I would see like the 20 whatever amount of people of us that were there. Yet when I woke up the next morning, I seen there was like 80, 90 people that played. I'm like, how did that ever happen? That was just weird, and I'm like, I don't like this. So I literally at that point withdrew every single coin that I had from the actual site, and then I took the coins I had from my wallet and I sent it to Bittrex and I sold them all at around 200, and then I bought that of Bitcoin Cash with it. And given that what's happened, it's worked out that it has, but I was like, okay, well, the site's not really running too well, is one of the things that I'm thinking. If I go to the website in which that I play, and what I'll do is I'll type in this. I mean, a lot of times I don't even bookmark it. I'll just type in CRYO. So crypto fantasy sports. But when I do this, I get error 526 invalid double SL certificate, and I'm trying to find out what that is, and it sounds like that is where I don't know. I couldn't figure it out. I think it might be that they just didn't keep their contract up and they didn't pay for the next term or whatever. I'm really not too sure about that. And then I went to the website, is it down? And they said, no, it's not. It's running fine. I'm like, okay, I don't think that they would have. I don't know. That was just really weird. So the only other website I can go to is the other site, which is No Limit Fantasy Sports. And I'm logged in. I have no balance on there. And when I go to Tourney, I see everything's like, okay, dollar in here. And the dollar buy-in has 108 people, 100 guaranteed. So there we go. That's the thing. So this would be, that's the example that I'm talking about. Maybe they would, it's closing at 105, which meant that, well, that was minutes ago because it's 122 now as I'm doing this. And then we have the free roll that's available, but that's it. There's no NLC2 that's on here. Now I see in here I can play heads up for 100 NLC2 points. For 100, there's but that's really all it is. Now if I change the sport to NFL, we're now moving into week one of the NFL season. I can see there's Thursday to Monday. But if I go to attorney, and I haven't looked at this in a few days, I got 5 lineups in here for now. But it's a free roll where that's like $20, and you can have up to 5 lineups. So I just put that in there. But I don't see anything here really for the NLC2 point of view. So it kind of is like an uncool situation based on that. And if we go to the 2019 NFL draft, as I'm now talking about two guys, two rookies. The second one is the big one, though, and the easy one to get in your fantasy league. Not one receiver until Harry was drafted in the late first round. Actually, Marquise Brown. That's the guy I'm talking. Yeah, Marquise Brown. He isn't. He's going really late, and I know he's got a interesting quarterback, Lamar Jackson, a running quarterback, who may not get as many passing yards, but the way I look at it is, if I can get him, I got him with my last 4 picks, or my fourth last pick was Marquise Brown. My third last pick was the Seattle defense because they have a good first week matchup, and then I'm just going to play the best defense on a week to week basis. My second last pick, my last pick was the kicker, and my second last pick was the next wide receiver. And let me try to find him. He's on Philadelphia. This guy here. J.J.A. Whiteside. I don't want to pronounce Jose. Jose Whiteside, I don't know. He statistically, his stats, he looked really good in college. At least that's what I quickly read and seen on a YouTube video about him. He looks pretty good, and he had an amazing preseason. As did the other guy, because the other quarterback or the other receiver in Baltimore had a great week 3 preseason, and they shut him down completely for the 4th week. When you see that, like some sort of rookie come in, dominate week 2, week 3 preseason, and get absolutely no playing time in week 4, you know they're good to go. Now this guy here, he's Like nobody really even would know about him. But I wouldn't be surprised if this guy could come through and have a phenomenal year. Last year in college, he had 63 catches for 1,059 yards and 14 touchdowns in Stanford. So this is somebody I think just may be a big surprise. You can get him pretty much with your last pick. And that's what I did because the way I was in a situation for in my keeper league, the best four players that I could keep going into the draft, and that's what you do is you keep four players, maximum of two per position. And I decided to keep Matt Ryan. I also had quarterback of the Rams, Jared Goff, but I didn't keep him. Running back Christian McCaffrey. I drafted him first overall in the draft last year, with I think like the fifth overall pick. I was so hoping all the way through. Come on, give me Christian McCaffrey, give me Christian McCaffrey, and I didn't get him. Then Antonio or Freeman of the Atlanta Falcons. I just didn't have much Devonta Freeman. I just didn't have much other choices. He was like injured all year and he just stayed on my bench. A wide receiver, some of the guys that I had on my team, I had Jarvis Landry, who I decided not to keep. Then I had another good receiver as well that was about as good as Landry, who I can't remember offhand who it was, but he ended up leaving as well. And of course, I'm not going to keep a defense or kicker. I also have six bench spots. So my draft strategy, I was able to do exactly what I wanted. I knew that in the first few rounds, I had to get a quarterback, two wide receivers, and a running back. So my first four picks, that's what was going to happen no matter what. So first pick, I ended up getting a backup running back. I got the one from the Green Bay Packers. I can't remember his name offhand, but that's who I got with my first pick. I was hoping to get Ezekiel Elliott as he wasn't saved because of the contract issue, and he went all the way to like pick number four, and I didn't get him, so that was unfortunate. Then my next round, I end up getting wide receiver, and I like this guy a lot, Tyler Lockett. Tyler Lockett of the Seattle Seahawks. I'm huge on him this year, and the reason why is because Doug Baldwin's gone. And when you look at his stats last year, Russell Wilson throwing to Tyler Lockett had a 158.3 ratio, which was a perfect ratio. He never threw an interception in his area, had a very high completion percentage, a lot of yards per reception, and a good number amount of touchdowns. Of course, no interceptions. So I took him with my selection as my as my next wide receiver. Then after that, I went with another wide receiver with my next pick, and this is someone, yeah, this is someone I had last year. I said I can't remember who it was when I redrafted him from the Atlanta Falcons, and this is I did this last year because I took Calvin Ridley because he was a rookie, and I know I got to go with young players in these keeper leagues and try to get them. George Kittle I picked up just in the waiver wire last year, and he had a phenomenal season. But I ended up getting Jarvis or I got the Atlanta Falcons wide receiver, the new guy in town. And let me just go to my team. Calvin Ridley is who I ended up taking. So there's Tyler Lockett. I then ended up taking Ben Roethlisberger with the next pick after that, which is really interesting because 10-team league. Before me, everyone's going after quarterback and quarterback. Carson Wentz, Tom Brady, like a couple other guys off the board. And I went with Ben Roethlisberger. To me, he's still a very good receiver. And though they've lost Antonio Brown, J.J. Smith-Schuster is just a fantastic receiver. And Aaron Jones, he was the running back I got from Green Bay. I ended up getting Nick Foles as my backup quarterback. And I got A.J. Green a little bit later as well. D.D. Westbrook, to me, I figure he's a good backup receiver. I think he's got very little upside, but he could be a good player. But the best he might do is get 1,000 yards and about 8 touchdowns. So that's what I did. And kicker and def. I mean, I just took Seattle because of their Week 1 matchup. I just want to pick on bad teams. So they play Cincinnati in Week 1, and they're just a bad team. So I want to play against teams like Cincinnati, Indianapolis, teams, New York Giants, teams I don't think are going to do well offensively. And Robbie Gould, I didn't even draft because he was my last pick. But once I drafted Whiteside with my second last pick, it was like, okay, I'll just turn my computer off as I don't care which kicker you give me, and I'll just pick the best one in. But Robbie Gould is an accurate kicker, and Tampa Bay, they're nothing. They don't got to. It doesn't really matter who you play against. It really is your condition, as long as it's a good stadium. Justin Tucker, he's the best, I think, but who knows? So it worked out again as my bench. I have six guys on the bench. One was a backup running back, which was the first pick in the draft, and then the backup quarterback, which left me four backup spots. So within the four, one is the AJ Green, holding to see if he can come back and how well he can do. Then the normal backup that I met, which was DD Westbrook. And then the two sleeper picks, of course, the young players. And in keeper leagues and in deep leagues, these are the ones that could just come out of nowhere because you just oftentimes in the first couple of weeks, 3 weeks, you're going to see just a handslide of rookies. A lot of them might be guys that were undrafted or fourth, fifth, sixth later round picks that do very, very well. And that's what makes it interesting within the start of a new season. And an interesting thing not planning on talking about was Andrew Luck. A lot of interesting aspects on there as we finally have a player at the quarterback position who retired early due to cautiousness of his career, injuries, not having fun, and that is unfortunate, but it's actually smart. And when you're at the stage where you basically got like close to $100 million in salary net, I mean, it's not that most difficult of a challenge, but it also happens when Andrew Luck's father is a commissioner of a new football league that is starting at the end of the season. I don't know if that means much, but I just found that interesting. Anyway, thank you for tuning in, and have yourself a great day. Bye bye.